Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, we have two quick gentle reminders. As part of our weekly current affairs explain session, today's topic would be Taming India's twin deficit problem. Please do tune in live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. And as a continuation to our knowledge series, tomorrow's explanation would be about SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act, and day after, that is on Sunday, what we will have is Coastal Plains of India being discussed live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. So please do tune in and understand everything about these topics. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says reviving BSNL in a competitive telecom market. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. We have the Union Cabinet which has given an approval to invest as much as 1.64 lakh crore to revive BSNL. When we look into the companies which are operating in the telecom sector right now, we have Jio and Airtel, who are the major stakeholders when it comes to the telecom operations in the country. We also have Vodafone Idea, and added to it, we also have BSNL as well. BSNL happens to be a state entity. It is run by the government. So the government has now planned to infuse as much as 1.64 lakh crore so that it can revive and also make sure that more telecommunication companies are in the market. First up, we have to understand what is the objective of the government. The government basically believes that it has threefold objective. One is to make sure that more services are provided by BSNL. So the first idea is to upgrade the state-owned operator services. Second is to strengthen the stressed balance sheet. And third is to increase the fiber network in the rural areas. To make sure that all this works in practice, the government has infused as much as 1.64 lakh crores. How has the government of India split this entire amount? This can be broadly categorized into three compartments. One is with respect to allocation of the spectrum in 900 to 1800 megahertz band administratively at the cost of 44,993 crore via equity infusion. So the first area where the government of India is focusing is on providing the spectrum. What is the spectrum? Whenever we are speaking on the telecommunication module, what you require is the radio frequencies. These radio frequencies are a national asset. So whenever a spectrum is to be auctioned, they have to pay some money, and the government is infusing about 44,993 for the spectrum charges. So to put it simply, the allocation would basically make BSNL increase as well as consolidate its serviceable bandwidth, and as a result, wherever we do not have much better service of BSNL right now, it would be able to improvise on it, and it will also be able to provide higher speed data in number of locations. So the first objective as to why BSNL is infusing a lot of money is to increase the availability of the spectrum in number of regions. Second, the government would provision about 13,789 crores to the company to fund its operational viability gap in the commercially unviable rural wireline operations that it had undertaken between 2014 and 15 and 2019 and 20. When we speak about the urban areas, what exactly happens? You have number of business outlets, you have business telecom companies like Jio as well as Airtel. These companies may believe in the concept of cream skimming. What is this cream skimming? This is a business module. What exactly happens? They focus on the profits. Where do they get more profits? It is in the urban areas. So a business entity, or in this example a telecom company, will more actively participate in those areas where they are able to generate the profit. Where are Jio and Airtel generating profits? Mostly in the urban areas, which is why their focus would only be in the urban areas. Comparatively, it may be less in the rural areas. So in order to prevent that, the urban and the rural buyers, what the government of India is planning to do is infuse more money in the unviable rural wireline. In the rural areas, maybe they're not concentrating so much, but rural people also require data. They also require internet penetration. They also require the network connectivity, for which you have the state entity BSNL, which would be present as part of this telecom upgradation. This is the second part. The third is government would also be increasing the authorized capital from 40,000 crores to about 1.50 lakh crore in lieu of its adjusted gross revenue dues, provision of capital expenditure, and allotment of spectrum. What do we mean by it? This means that when we speak about AGR, it refers to the free sharing mechanism that commutes the share in revenues that the telecom service providers are required to pay the government as annual fee. What exactly happens? You have the government of India which is giving the spectrum. It also means that these companies which are taking the spectrum will have to pay some amount to the government. So what is that amount that this company is paying to the government on an annual basis? That is what is called as adjusted gross revenue. For all the revenue that they generate, one from the spectrum and from other activities, they have to pay certain amount to the government, for which the government again is infusing about 1.50 lakh crore for the BSNL revival. What could be the impact of the revival package with these measures? The center expects that BSNL will be able to improvise on the quality of the existing services, roll out more 4G services in those areas where it is currently not provided, and also become financially viable in the near future as well. It also expects that this implementation plan for the revival of the BSNL will also have some turnaround time, and eventually somewhere, let's say in 2026 or in 27, this company will also return to profits, is one of the beliefs of the government of India. Is this the first time a revival package is proposed by the government? No. Previously as well, back in the year 2019, you also had the government of India make proposals for the benefits of the BSNL. Back in 2019, they also requested for the merger of MTNL as well as BSNL. Why? Because the MTNL had its presence in Delhi as well as in Mumbai, and when it comes to BSNL, it had its footprint in the rural areas, so they wanted to merge it together so that they can expand on the footprint. Added to it, when we speak about the MTNL, it had its own share of problems. One was with respect to the financial issues as well as high debt that it owes, and as a result, previously as well, we had these companies which were merged to revive the BSNL. How is BSNL placed in comparison to its peers? What we have to look at is the average revenue per user. What is this average revenue per user? This is an indicator of the profitability of a product based on the amount of money that is generated from each of its users or the subscribers. Let me explain this with the help of an example. Let's say we have a company, it has about $10 million in revenue. Let's say it also has about 10,000 customers. So the average revenue per user happens to be about $100. So basically it is the revenue that we have to divide with the active number of customers. So whatever amount that we generate is what is called as average revenue per user. So this is nothing but an indicator of the profitability of a product based on the amount of money that is generated from each of its users or the subscribers. When we consider BSNL, it is unable to promptly respond to technological innovations in the market like its private peers, say a rapid transition from 4G to 5G. Thus, its ARPU suffers and impacts the bouquet of services. On the other hand, Bharti Airtel's ARPU in the March end quarter increased by about 23%, while Reliance Jio's ARPU increased by about 27% on a year-on-year basis, which BSNL was not able to accomplish. Then what we have to look at is the subscriber data. A perquisite of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India's monthly subscriber data between the end of April and May shows that BSNL lost wireless subscribers at an average of 0.30% each month during the period, whereas Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio combined had acquired wireless subscribers at an average of 0.43% each year. Again, BSNL in comparison is losing the number of subscribers. So again, the other two companies have an advantage. Then we have the base transceiver stations. What is it? This happens to be an equipment that sends and receives radio signals from mobile devices and routes them to other terminals in the network. As per the figures laid out in the Rajya Sabha, Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel held 6 and 5.5 times more BTSs respectively when compared with the BSNL. All this means that BSNL's data is not doing good and the subscriber base of BSNL is also not good, says this article. If we look into the statistics further, as per the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agencies, India's telecom industry is the second largest in the world. The country's overall teledensity is 84.88%. However, there exists a divide between rural and urban areas, which we did discuss in the form of cream skimming. While the urban market's teledensity is about 134.70%, the rural market is largely untapped, about 58.2%. However, at the end of May, both Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel had almost 5 times more subscribers in rural areas compared with BSNL. This is where we have to understand two important factors. One, can BSNL be revived in the near future? Yes, and BSNL cannot be revived in the near future, and it also means that the government is using our money, taxpayers' money, into one of the companies which cannot be revived. First, let us look at and understand what is the importance why the government of India infusing the money is good for the country. As we discussed when we spoke about cream skimming, there are companies which operate mostly in the urban areas. They are mostly operating in the urban areas and not in the rural areas. This basically means it will increase the urban rural digital divide, and the rural people who are living in the rural areas will not be able to get internet penetration as well as data. This is where the government of India's state module BSNL will be able to work in the rural areas. It is not only looking at the profit motive, it is looking at the social welfare. So the idea of social welfare will also be taken into picture, which these profit making companies need not have to focus on. So this basically means on one side the urban rural divide will be comparatively reduced, and this will be used as a social welfare program where the rural areas will also be able to witness increasing internet penetration. This is the advantage, but when we look at the other side to it, what we have is issues and concerns with respect to this revival program. When you look into the government's viewpoint, the government in the past has said that the government has no business to be in business. Telecom also happens to be a business. You also have Airtel, Jio, Vodafone and Idea, which are already present in the business. So why come up with the state entity while this state entity is already witnessing a huge amount of losses? Even if we infuse a lot of money, because of the red tape, because of the bureaucracy, they will not be able to revive, and ultimately it is the people's money which is going for a toss. Previously, we did have Air India as well. Air India was also infused with a lot of money. Since it did not work out, it was privatized over a period of time. It is the market which will decide whether that particular company will work in the market or not. Why should the government infuse taxpayers' money into such a company which is into loss making is another side of the argument. What do you think? Should BSNL be revived or it should not be revived? Please put them on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article. After the referendum, the challenges of a power grab in Tunisia. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. This article currently goes on to say Tunisian voters have approved a new constitution that would turn the country into a presidential system. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. This dates back to Arab Spring. What is this Arab Spring? We will understand that. Why did Arab Spring come into picture? And then we had a constitution that was in place in Tunisia. Now we have a different constitution that is been put in place. This has created concerns. This is what this article is speaking about. First, we have to understand the concept of Arab Spring. What is this Arab Spring? Arab Spring was a series of loosely related group of protests that led to changes in government in countries such as Tunisia, Egypt and Libya. Despite the popular support, not all of them were considered successful. The reason was that the end goal was increase in democracy and freedom. The period following the Arab Spring was marked by increased stability and oppression. Although Arab Springs were divided by geographic constraints and differing objectives, they all began with a single act of defiance. So where did it start? It started in Tunisia back in the year 2010. If we look into the countries, all these countries were impacted by the Arab Spring. So it started in Tunisia in 2010. Then what we had is the expansion of the Arab Spring in multiple other countries like Libya, Egypt, Syria, Yemen. It also reached Bahrain, so on and so forth. All these countries also did feel the pinch of the Arab Spring. So what is this Arab Spring all about? In December 2010, Tunisian street vendor Mohamed Bourouzi set himself on fire to protest the arbitrary seizing of his vegetables by the police. They did so as Mohammed had failed to obtain a permit. This act served as a catalyst for the now famous Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia. It led to street protests in the capital of Tunis and quickly spread to other countries as well. So, what this basically means is that people in Tunisia were not happy with the government. As a result, they wanted more freedom, they wanted democracy in place, which is why they went ahead and created a riot in the Tunisia. So, the minute this happened, it also spread to multiple other countries as well. So, they wanted replacement of dictatorship or monarchy with democracy. There were number of human right violations like in this case which had to be replaced, and what they required was institutional strength which will monitor all these human rights as well. There was large scale political corruption, economic decline, unemployment crisis that was brewing in all these countries, extreme poverty, extreme inequality, a number of demographic issues that was surfacing in these countries. So these countries, it started in Tunisia, immediately started spreading to multiple other countries as well. They wanted to overthrow the existing structure that was existing in these countries and eventually move towards democracy where they had the constitution of their own. They also had the institutional setup as well. This was what was Arab Spring. But over a period of time, the Arab Spring became successful only in Tunisia, and this was not successful in multiple other countries. So if we speak about Tunisia, they were able to bring large scale reforms as well. They were able to bring constitution as well. That is because these people were open minded. Tunisia was the only country that saw a peaceful transition to democracy with the new constitution in place, witnessing a certain transition. Why? That is because these people were able to adapt inclusive dialogue, consensus, strong commitment, and determination to the Tunisian people that they wanted democracy. Because the people were adamant about it, they were able to fight all other forces which did not want democracy in Tunisia. The political elite, the secular, were deeply committed to meet the aspirations of the Tunisian people through the establishment of the solid democratic institutions. So in Tunisia, they were able to achieve what they want, but in many other countries, this was not successful. In Egypt, while protesters brought down the 30-year-old dictatorship of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, the revolution did not last long in that country. In Libya, the protests against Muammar Gaddafi slipped into a civil war which saw a military intervention by North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This created a large-scale ruckus in the country, and over a period of time there was chaos and anarchy in Libya. In Bahrain, the Shia majority country ruled by a Sunni monarchy, neighboring Saudi Arabia sent troops to crush protests in Manama's Pearl Square. In Yemen, President Ali Abdullah Saleh had to relinquish power, but the country fell into a civil war, leading to the rise of the Shia Houthi rebels who now control capital Sana'a and the subsequent Saudi attack on the impoverished country. In Syria, protesters turned into a proxy civil war, and President Bashar al-Assad's rival backing his enemies and his allies including Hezbollah, Iran and Russia backing the regime. President Assad seems to have won the civil war for now. So this basically means it was only in Tunisia that they had a limited success with respect to the Arab Spring, but many other countries where they saw initial success were not able to capitalize on it. So this article currently goes on to say that yes, we did see the initial success in Tunisia. We did have the constitution as well. We did have the political parties that were put in place as well, but now everything is going to be changed. Will it actually reap the benefits of constitution is what is this article all about. In the year 2014, they had the constitution in place. According to it, it came up with what is called as the mixed parliamentary and presidential system. What do we mean by it? In the mixed parliamentary and presidential system, you will have the prime minister, and at the same time you will also have the president as well. So the president will be elected by the people. You will also have the members who will be elected on the basis of election. You will also have the prime minister who will be selected as as well. So the Prime Minister will look after the daily affairs and the President will look after the military as well as the foreign affairs. This was what was called as the mixed parliamentary and presidential system. And as part of the mixed parliamentary system, Islamist Ennahdha party came into power. Everything was good, but after 2011 number of political parties came into picture. There was no political stability as well. The economic crisis continued to unfold in Tunisia, and what we had is the presence of COVID-19 during 2020. And the minute COVID-19 struck, their economy further suffered as well. They had much disastrous health consequences and many people lost their lives, and this is where people started protesting against the government. And finally, protesters stormed the offices of Ennahda, the ruling party, and ultimately, you had the president who took over the power. So, during this period, what we had is a constitutional crisis because you didn't have the parliamentary regime, and what you had is only the presidential regime in place. So, he had large scale power as well, and the minute he got the power, he appointed a prime minister that he wished to run the government, and he also had a free run in the country. He was able to issue the decrees as well, and in the constitutional court which was supposed to decide all this, there were judges who were appointed on the whims and fancies of the president. This meant that the constitution was in place, but it was working according to the whims and the fancies of the president. So what are the key changes that have been introduced in the new constitution? According to Syed, the new constitution would protect the values of the 2011 revolution, bread, freedom and dignity, while it leaves most of the personal freedoms guaranteed by 2014 contribution intact. The new charter seeks to take the country back to the presidential system, undercutting the powers of the parliament. The president will have ultimate authority to form a government, name the ministers without the parliament's approval, appoint judges and present legislation directly to the legislature. So instead of a two-headed executive where we had the president who had to share power with the prime minister, which was chosen by the parliament, the president will now be the ultimate authority, choosing the prime minister, presenting laws to the parliament, and even appointing the judges. This is where this article voices couple of concerns with respect to the new constitution. According to this constitution, all the powers will now be taken by the president. This would ultimately mean it would be impossible for the lawmakers to remove the president from the office. He has sacked judges in the past. He has appointed judges who are in favor of the president. So the judiciary will also not work in an efficient manner. And at the same time, with all these major changes, what we will once again have is an autocratic system in Tunisia. What they did not want, they will be getting that in the near future, says this article. So this article currently goes on to say the only country where Arab Spring was successful happened to be Tunisia. They had the institutions, they had the constitution, but in the near future, because they have now accepted this new constitution as initiated by the president, they may face issue in the near future, and this will undo all the efforts that have been previously taken, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says what numbers do not reveal about tiger conservation. This article here is speaking about tiger conservation. First, we have to understand about Global Tiger Day. The Global Tiger Day is celebrated every year on 29th of July. That is to raise awareness about the significance of tiger to the environment. It is the 12th edition of International Tiger Day. The idea behind celebrating this day annually is to raise awareness for the conservation of tigers, which are endangered species. Tigers are globally listed as endangered. Malayan and Sumatran tiger subspecies are critically endangered. They are native to the isolated areas of Asia and East Russia. There are 9 subspecies of tiger: Siberian, Indian tiger or the Bengal tiger, South China tiger, Malayan tiger, Indo-Chinese tiger, Sumatran tiger, Bali tiger, Javan tiger, as well as Caspian tiger. There are around 3,900 tigers in the world. The World Fund for Nature aims to double the tiger population by 2022, which is also the Chinese Year of the Tiger. The species that was once found all over Asia is now restricted to 13 countries, which are called as tiger range nations. So this article currently goes on to say that tiger numbers are declining, and as a result we have to take some measures, says this article. What are those? There has been an increase of the habitat loss, there is deforestation, we have hit the tiger habitats, this should not be happening. There is urbanization and fragmentation in the tiger corridors, which are the main reasons for their decrease. So forests are cut, highways and cities are built, and the so-called forest lands which cut through the national corridors of the tiger are the major problems, and this should be restricted, says the article. So basically in all those areas where the corridors are present, they should be safeguarded, says this article. The article further makes a reference to the Simlipal Tiger Reserve as well as the Ranthambore National Park. When we speak about Simlipal, it is a protected area which comes under the UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Simlipal Biosphere Reserve attained this status in 2009. Simlipal National Park is located in the state of Odisha in Mayurbhanj district. Simlipal National Park derived its name from the abundant availability of red silk cotton trees growing in the area. Simlipal National Park is also a tiger reserve. Simlipal National Park covers an area of 2,750 square kilometer. It was established in 1980. The governing body of this biosphere reserve is the Ministry of Environment. Now, if we speak about Ranthambore, it is a national park located in Rajasthan. It derives its name from the Ranthambore Fort located in the same area, and the Ranthambore National Park is known for its large population of tigers and other wildlife. Initially, it was called a Savai Mador Game Sanctuary in 1955. The park covered an area of 282 kilometers square. Tiger Reserve was further expanded to include Keladi Sanctuary as well as Savai Mansingh Sanctuary as well. And due to its proximity to the Thar Desert, the park receives little rainfall, hence its vegetation consists of dry deciduous type. The prominent tree of the Ranthambore National Park is Doak and constitutes about 80% of the vegetation cover. These are some of the important facts that we have to remember from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article. This article says narrow view. The article here is speaking about PMLA. We did discuss about this issue in our yesterday's CNA, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the main practice questions. Is the eschewing loss making BSNL a good use of public funds? Critically examine. Arab Spring, which offered hope of democratic change across the Middle East and North Africa, has failed. Substantiate. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.